May 22, 2017, Manchester, England. It is 10:31 in the evening. At the Manchester Arena, 22,000 people, most of them teenagers, many of them children, are watching the final moments of a concert. The performer has just finished her last song, the lights have come up, the crowd is moving toward the exits. In the lobby of the arena, a 22-year-old man detonates a homemade bomb. In the next seconds, 22 people are killed. More than 1,000 are injured. Over half of those who lose their lives are under the age of 18. They had come to hear music. They had come to feel joy. They had come because the woman on that stage made them feel seen and understood and not alone. Ariana Grande is 23 years old. She is backstage when the explosion happens. She is alive. In the days that follow, she will post a brain scan on Instagram, showing the difference between a healthy brain and a brain with severe PTSD, and confirming that hers looks like the latter. 15 months after Manchester, the man she loves most will die of a drug overdose in his Los Angeles home. He is 26 years old. A month after that, the person she thought she would marry will break off her engagement. In the next 12 months, Ariana Grande will write and record and release Thank You Next, a song that becomes the most streamed song of 2019, a song that turns every heartbreak she has ever experienced into 4 minutes of joyful, defiant, perfectly constructed pop music. She is 25 years old. This is her full story, from the very beginning. June 26, 1993, Boca Raton, Florida. Ariana Grande-Butera was born to Joan Grande, a chief executive officer, and Edward Butera, a graphic designer. Both of her parents are of Italian descent. She has an older half-brother named Frankie, who would himself become a performer and producer. The family lived in Boca Raton, a wealthy, sun-drenched suburb of Fort Lauderdale, the kind of place where children grow up with swimming pools and performing arts classes, and the specific confidence that comes from never having to worry about the basics. Her parents separated when she was 8 years old. It was painful in the way that all parental separations are painful for a child, the disruption of the world they thought was permanent. But Ariana Grande had already found the thing that would be more permanent than any family arrangement: music. When she was 8 years old, she went on a cruise with her family, and she sang karaoke while Gloria Estefan was listening to her sing. Estefan told Grande to follow her dreams, which inspired Grande to pursue singing and acting. A chance compliment from a legend overheard on a cruise ship to a girl who was 8 years old. One of those small moments that turns out to be enormous. She co-founded the youth singing group Kids Who Care in South Florida. They performed in various charity events, raising over $500,000 for charities in 2007 alone. She was a child organizing charity concerts. She was not playing at performing, she was doing it with the complete seriousness of someone who already understood that a stage was where she was supposed to be. She began acting at the age of 9 by performing in theater productions. In order to focus on her musical career, she left school at the age of 13. She left school at 13, not because she had given up, because she had chosen something more important than a classroom, the same way that Eminem had dropped out, the way Justin Bieber had been homeschooled on the road, the way every person in this series who became extraordinary had understood earlier than their peers that their education was going to happen somewhere else than the conventional path. For Ariana Grande, that education was about to begin on Broadway. Her first major professional project came in 2008 when she landed the role of Charlotte in the Broadway musical 13. She was 15 years old. The musical 13 was a coming-of-age story set in a middle school with a cast composed entirely of teenagers, an unusual, ambitious project that required young performers to carry the entire weight of a Broadway production. Ariana Grande did it at 15. She stood on Broadway and delivered a performance that earned her notice from industry professionals who were used to seeing the best young talent in America. She also made a friend. Her 13 co-star was a girl named Elizabeth Gillies. She and Grande have been best friends since they starred in the Broadway musical together in 2008. They would appear together again almost immediately. Her big break came in 2010 when she landed a role on the Nickelodeon TV series Victorious. She played Kat Valentine, a teenager attending a performing arts school. Kat was, as one TV critic described her, adorably dim-witted, bubbly, sweet, slightly disconnected from reality in a way that was endearing rather than frustrating. Ariana Grande played her with such genuine warmth and physical comedy that she became immediately recognizable. The Nickelodeon audience is not a small one. By 2011, Ariana Grande was known by every child in America who watched television. She was 17 years old, with dyed red hair and a character that millions of young people adored. But she knew, even then, even while filming episode after episode of a children's sitcom, that Kat Valentine was a costume, something she was wearing while she prepared for what she actually wanted to do. She signed with Republic Records in 2011 after the label's executives discovered videos of her covering songs that she uploaded onto YouTube. Not discovered through a formal audition, discovered through YouTube videos of cover songs. The pattern that had begun with Justin Bieber, the democratization of musical discovery through the internet, was continuing to reshape who got signed and how. Her voice had been there all along, the 4-octave soprano range that would eventually make critics compare her to Mariah Carey was visible in those YouTube covers. Republic Records heard it and moved quickly. Victorious ran from 2010 to 2013. In August 2012, it was announced that Victorious would not be returning after 3 seasons, but by then, Ariana Grande had already ensured she had somewhere to go.
Grande released her debut album, Yours Truly, in 2013. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. She was 20 years old. It was a deliberate artistic choice, a retro R&B sound that nodded to the Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston records she had grown up studying. The lead single, The Way, featuring Mac Miller, a young rapper from Pittsburgh who would become one of the most important people in her life, reached the top 5 of the Billboard Hot 100. The voice on that album stopped people, not just audiences, other musicians, producers, people in the industry who had heard thousands of singers and thought they knew what a good voice sounded like. Ariana Grande's 4-octave range and the effortless, almost casual way she deployed it, as if the high notes cost her nothing, was immediately recognized as something exceptional. Her second album, My Everything, followed in 2014. It experimented with electronic dance music and produced several of her biggest early hits: Problem featuring Iggy Azalea, Break Free, and a collaboration with Jessie J and Nicki Minaj on Bang Bang that became one of the most played songs of the year. She was 21 years old. She had gone from Nickelodeon actress to internationally recognized pop star in less than 12 months. The transition was so clean, so complete, that the industry marveled at it. She began the honeymoon tour. She headlined arenas across North America, Europe, Asia, Australia. She was 21 years old, headlining arenas on her own, with a voice that made other vocalists feel the need to raise their game. Grande went into pop and R&B with her third album, Dangerous Woman, in 2016. If Yours Truly had introduced her voice and My Everything had demonstrated her commercial range, Dangerous Woman was the first album where Ariana Grande's identity as an artist, as opposed to a vocalist performing great songs, became fully visible. The title track was a declaration. The imagery was deliberately adult. The production was more confident, darker, more willing to sit in ambiguity. This was not Kat Valentine. This was not the girl from the YouTube covers. This was someone who had decided to show the world who she actually was, and discovered, in doing so, that who she actually was would sell millions of records. The Dangerous Woman World Tour launched in February 2017. North America, Europe, Asia. The shows were spectacular. Her staging had grown more ambitious with each tour. Her confidence on stage, absolute. She was 23 years old. She was at the peak of the first chapter of her career. She was approaching the night that would end that chapter and begin something else entirely. Chapters 5 and 6. Slow pace, most serious chapter. The concert at Manchester Arena on May 22, 2017 was near the end of the Dangerous Woman World Tour. The venue was sold out, 22,000 people. The audience was predominantly young, teenagers, preteens, many of them attending their first concert, brought by parents who waited in the lobby or nearby. Ariana Grande performed her full set. The lights came up at the end, she left the stage, the crowd began moving toward the exits. At 10:31 p.m., a 22-year-old man named Salman Abedi detonated a homemade explosive device in the arena's foyer, the most crowded point of exit. 22 people died. Over 1,000 were injured. Among the dead, an 8-year-old girl named Safi Rose Roussos, who had attended the concert with her mother and older sister, a 14-year-old named Nell Jones, a 28-year-old named Martin Hett, who had been a devoted fan of Ariana Grande's music for years. The attack undeniably left Grande riddled with grief that stays with her to this day. During an interview for British Vogue, Ariana opened up about dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, but emphasized the fact that she wasn't the only one who was left shattered. She was dealing with PTSD from the terror attack that killed 22 people and injured hundreds. She posted a brain scan on Instagram. The image showed 2 brains side by side, a healthy brain and a brain with severe PTSD. Her brain showed similar highlighting to the PTSD sufferer. She posted it not for sympathy, but for education, to show the world, particularly young people who might be experiencing similar trauma without understanding what it was, that PTSD is not a feeling. It is a physical, neurological condition. It is visible in a brain scan. It is real. It's not my trauma. It's those families. It's their losses. And so it's hard to just let it all out without thinking about them reading this and reopening the memory for them. She carried it. She processed it. She did what Ariana Grande has always done when faced with something enormous. She turned it into action. 13 days after the bombing, on June 4th, 2017, Ariana Grande returned to Manchester. She organized a benefit concert, One Love Manchester, at the Old Trafford Cricket Ground, with 12 days of planning. The performers included Coldplay, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus, Pharrell Williams, and others who came at short notice because she called them. 50,000 people attended. The benefit concert ultimately raised £17 million to aid the families of those affected by the bombing. She invited the families of the victims. She met with them backstage before the show. The people who had lost children, parents, partners in the lobby of a building she had been performing in 12 days earlier. She sat with them. She held their hands. She looked them in the eye. People who were there have described her composure that day as one of the most extraordinary things they have ever witnessed. She was 23 years old. She had PTSD that was visible in her brain scan, and she stood on a stage in the city where 22 people had been killed at her concert, and she performed for 50,000 people, and she raised £17 million for the victims' families. In 2021, Grande was made an honorary citizen of Manchester in recognition of her response to the attack. She was the first international celebrity to receive that honor. She went back. That is who Ariana Grande is.
Mac Miller was a rapper from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was funny, self-aware, genuinely talented, and struggling in ways that he was open about with substance abuse. He and Ariana Grande had met when he featured on The Way in 2013. What began as a professional collaboration became a friendship, and then, in 2016, a romantic relationship. They dated for approximately 2 years, quietly, with more privacy than either of their profiles might have suggested was possible. Revisiting her relationship with Miller, Grande called it all-consuming. According to the interview, she had to frequently check in to make sure the beloved rapper wasn't on a bender. She loved him. She was also frightened for him. The two things existed simultaneously, the love and the fear, in the way they do when you care deeply about someone who is not safe. They broke up in May 2018. The split was public and immediately subjected to the worst of the internet, with some of Mac Miller's fans blaming Ariana Grande for his mental state. It was cruel and it was unjust, and she endured it because there was no other option. In June 2018, she began a relationship with Saturday Night Live comedian Pete Davidson. By the end of the month, they were engaged. On September 7, 2018, Mac Miller was found unresponsive at his Los Angeles home. He was 26 years old. It was later discovered he had fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol in his system. His death was ruled an accidental overdose. Grande said the grief was all-consuming. By no means was what we had perfect, but like he was the best person ever, and he didn't deserve the demons he had. She was 25 years old. She was still processing the PTSD from Manchester, and now the man she had loved, the man she had been afraid for, the man she had tried to help, the man whose music was deeply intertwined with her early career, was gone. 1 month later, the engagement to Pete Davidson ended. "I have to be the luckiest girl in the world, and the unluckiest for sure," she told Vogue. In November 2018, 6 weeks after Mac Miller died and 4 weeks after the engagement ended, Ariana Grande released Thank You Next. The song referenced by name every significant relationship of her life. Mac Miller, Pete Davidson, Big Sean, Ricky Alvarez. It thanked each of them, not sarcastically, genuinely, for what each relationship had taught her about love, about patience, about pain, about herself. The song debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It became the most streamed song on Spotify in a single day by any female artist at that point. The music video, referencing the films Legally Blonde, Bring It On, 13 Going on 30, and Mean Girls, was watched over 55 million times in its first 24 hours on YouTube. She followed it immediately with 7 Rings, equally #1, equally enormous, a brash, unapologetic celebration of spending money and surrounding yourself with people you love. Back-to-back #1s, written in the middle of the most painful period of her life. That is what Ariana Grande does with devastation. She makes it into something that makes people feel better, something joyful, something that the person who is hurting can play and feel less alone. The Thank You Next album followed in February 2019. It debuted at #1. It was the fastest album in history to have 5 #1 singles on the Billboard 100. She won the Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Album for Sweetener in 2019. She became, by 2020, the most streamed female artist in the history of Spotify. The albums kept coming. The records kept falling. Sweetener in 2018, Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Album. Thank You Next in 2019, the fastest album to have 5 #1 singles. Positions in 2020, her 5th consecutive #1 debut on the Billboard 200. 5 albums, every single one debuted at #1. She became the first artist since the Beatles to have her first 5 studio albums all debut at #1 in the United States. The Beatles achieved this in the 1960s. No artist had matched it in over 50 years until Ariana Grande matched it in 2020. She was 27 years old. During the pandemic, while the world was at home and searching for comfort in music, Ariana Grande's catalog became a kind of companion for millions of people. The streams were astronomical. She released the collaborative single Rain on Me with Lady Gaga, which debuted at #1 and won the Grammy for Best Pop Duo and Group Performance. In December 2020, she announced her engagement to Dalton Gomez, a Los Angeles luxury real estate agent she had been dating since January 2020. In May 2021, they married in a small private ceremony at her Montecito, California home. The estimated guest list was under 30 people. It was, by all accounts, genuinely intimate and genuinely joyful. She was building a life, a quieter one than her public profile suggested, a real one. The marriage to Dalton Gomez lasted less than 2 years. They separated in January 2023. The divorce was finalized in October 2023. Both parties were private about the reasons. Gomez, who was not a public figure, maintained his privacy throughout. Ariana addressed it primarily through music, which is the only language she has ever fully trusted. But before the divorce had even been announced, she had met someone on a film set in England. She had been cast in the film adaptation of Wicked, the most beloved Broadway musical of the 21st century, as Glinda, the Good Witch. The role Wicked was released in November 2024. It had been anticipated for so long. The Broadway musical had been running for over 20 years, beloved by generations of theater fans, that the pressure on the film was immense. The film earned over $700 million at the global box office. Critics praised both leads, Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, Ariana Grande as Glinda, with a consistency that was remarkable for a project of such scale. The two women's chemistry was described as the heart of the film. At the Academy Awards, Ariana Grande was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She did not win, but the nomination, the first of her career, confirmed something that her music had always suggested, that she was not just a pop star with a good voice, she was a performer of genuine depth and range. The sequel, Wicked for Good, was released in November 2025. Grande returns as Glinda in the highly anticipated sequel, which earned her both Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations. She had gone from Cat Valentine on Nickelodeon to 2-time Oscar nominee in 15 years. Slater was not present at the opening weekend of Grande's Eternal Sunshine Tour, which launched June 6th in Oakland, California. On that first night, Grande performed Thank You Next live for the first time in 7 years. The crowd erupted. 7 years since the song was written, 7 years since the grief of Manchester and Mac Miller and Pete Davidson had been transmuted into 4 minutes of pop perfection. And now she was performing it live in a stadium for the first time to an audience that had carried that song with them through their own heartbreaks and losses and recoveries. Grande is currently preparing for the release of her forthcoming album, Petal, due July 31st. She released the lead single, Hate That I Made You Love Me, on May 29th. 8 albums, every one debuted at #1. Every era a reinvention, every heartbreak a song that made millions of people feel less alone. She's 32 years old. She's still going. the most streamed female artist in the history of Spotify, the first artist since the Beatles to have 5 consecutive debut albums reach #1, 2 Grammy Awards, 2 Oscar nominations, a voice that 4-octave vocal coaches use as a teaching example. But the legacy of Ariana Grande is not the records or the nominations or the streaming numbers. Those are the evidence. The legacy is what the evidence proves. It proves that a girl from Boca Raton, Florida, who left school at 13 to pursue a dream, who played a ditzy Nickelodeon character in dyed red hair for 3 years before anyone took her music seriously, can become the most dominant pop artist of her generation. It proves that the worst things that happen to you do not have to define you, that a bombing, a death, a broken engagement, a divorce, a controversial relationship, a public reckoning can all be processed and transformed and turned into something that connects with people who are going through their own worst things. It proves that a 4-octave range deployed with the emotional intelligence of someone who has actually lived what she is singing about is something that no algorithm can replicate and no trend can replace. She came back to Manchester. She posted the brain scan. She wrote Thank You Next. She starred in Wicked. She launched the Eternal Sunshine Tour in June 2026 with the first live performance of her greatest song in 7 years. She has never stopped. She has never hidden. She has never let the worst moments be the last word. That is the story of Ariana Grande. And she is still writing it. Thank you for watching Hollywood Now TV. Subscribe and hit the bell. New celebrity documentary every week. Comment below, what is your favorite Ariana Grande era? And which song of hers has meant the most to you personally?